guys, it's Coach Fro from RocioFlores.com, and today I'm going to be talking to you about weighing risks. So I'm chatting with you as I'm chatting online, and so obviously when I'm done with this chat, if you guys want to send me a message or if you guys want to talk about anything specific, I was just going to go ahead and tell you that I have a whole chat system set up on my website, so you can go through there as well. It's RocioFlores.com with 2 I's, and you can just send me an email there, and basically we'll go back and forth on there. And so I want to talk to you guys about this whole concept of weighing risks, and what I mean about that is like making decisions in your life, right? And so like should I do this, should I do that? Whether or not you think about it as a risk decision, that's what's happening in your brain, right? You're weighing the pros and cons of whether or not you should risk taking this action because there's some sort of possibility of a loss. Typically, you know, if you don't have that idea or there's no fear of loss, then you would just make a decision. Hello, right? And so it's easy to make decisions when there's nothing to lose, right? It's very, very easy for you to just go ahead and move forward and just choose what you want when you don't have this idea or this feeling that, oh my God, if you make the wrong decision, something bad will happen. So obviously, this whole concept of risk is in there, whether or not we're consciously thinking about it, right? And so a lot of us deal with this, whether or not we're using those words or not. And so I want to kind of come to the world today and tell you that that's probably what's happening if you're struggling with deciding to do something. Now, this decision might be imminent, like you might be like, okay, blue or red, or it could be something that you've been dragging on for years, that you've been trying to figure out how to do, that you've been trying to I don't know, like get yourself to do something or to change something or to approach somebody or to change the way you are, the way you act, your behavior, your feelings. Basically everything in our life, you know, it's a matter of either you're going to live through it or you're not going to live through it. You're making decisions or you're not making decisions, whether or not they feel that way. And so when you're like, okay, so I hate that I do this. I hate that I do this thing in my life. And I always do it, but I want to be able to do something else. Well, why don't you? Right? Like most of us are like, well, I can't. Well, and I know, I get it, because that's how I am too, right? And so you're like, okay, so if I can't, then how can I? Like, what can I do to make myself do it? And why haven't I been able to? Because whether or not you recognize that there is a decision to be made, there's just a lot there that's keeping you from being able to make that decision and to just treat it as a choice. Now, there's going to be a whole lot of people, especially in the personal development world, that might make you kind of feel shitty about it. They're going to be like, well, you should just be able to. Like, you should just know better. You should just do better. You should just have the willpower. And this is where a whole lot of other issues come up. Because when we feel like we don't have control... Hi, Natalie. When we feel like we don't have control over our own actions, for someone to tell us that, yeah, you do, feels like we're lying or we're, you know, fighting ourselves, or we're like there's something wrong with us, or like we're morally not great. I don't know, like there's hello guys, let me send you guys little white waves. Hello. Yeah, so what happens is if you have a decision to make and you just can't make it, and someone tells you that you should be able to make it, you're not going to feel great about that. You're going to have a lot of negative you're gonna have you're gonna have a whole lot of negative beliefs and negative feelings and negative thoughts associated with this decision. So now it's not just a simple decision. Now you're freaking out because you're like, okay, I don't know what to do, and all of a sudden you don't understand even why you can't just do what you want to do. So how do you tackle this? How do you make these decisions? How do you get past this feeling of risk? And what about when it really is risky, like when you don't feel safe? Hey guys, thank you so much for getting on here. So I'm talking about weighing risks. So when we're making decisions in our life, typically when we're struggling, it's because there's some sort of a feeling that if we make one decision or another, there's a risk that you'll either lose something or something bad will happen, or something good happens and you won't know how to deal with it. And so I want to go over, you know, basically, what do we do? And so I want to go over a few different concepts. And give me a second, let me respond here. So I could type a little bit now, look, like I could go like this. It's kind of hard. I'm really sore by the end of the day, but it's faster than with one hand. But I did get pretty good with one hand. So, okay, the first thing I want to go over first and foremost, whenever you're going over like some major decision or something's going on in your life, like, are you thinking about it correctly? And that may sound a little painful for some of you because you're like, what do you mean? Like, there's defensiveness there, and I totally get that. Like, that's there, so you have to address that. Look, sometimes we're not thinking about things the right way. We have what's called cognitive distortions, meaning that we have like basically logical fallacies going on in our own brains. So we think that we're looking at a certain situation from the right perspective, or that we understand what's going on. But when we analyze it, we step back and we're like, wait a minute. Yep, I wasn't thinking about it that right way. And when we're not thinking about things the way they actually are, we're thinking about them the way we think that we think about them, then we're not coming at the situation from the right perspective, and we don't have all the information to make a decision. You can't make a decision if you don't have all of the factors, if you don't understand what the reality of it is, right? So there's a lot of common cognitive distortions, and so when I'm finished here, I will link you guys to a post that I made about cognitive distortions because I think it's really helpful to understand what that term is. But cognitive distortions are types of distorted thinking. So it's a thought that we have that's not quite 100% right, but it feels right. And that's the issue, right? So when something feels right, we assume it's right. But that's not the case all the time. And so we have to be willing to step back away from how we feel and actually look at what is. What we feel isn't what is. What is what is. Right? Now we can have feelings about what is. And that may be perfectly valid and it's understandable, and it might not make it any easier, but you need to first understand what is. So common distortions are, for example, like all or nothing thinking, right? Like, so if I make this decision, this will happen and there's no other option. Like, this is the only thing that could happen that could result from it. So you're thinking it's all or nothing. Like, so this decision, if it feels like it's all or nothing, like there is no other possibility, there's no other option, there's no other perspective, then it's going to feel like a huge decision. It's going to be scary. It's going to feel like the world's going to end if you don't make your decision. Like, it's either all or nothing. Oh my God. Well, step back. Is it all or nothing? What are some other possibilities? What happens when other people make this decision? Like, is it possible for there to be more than one outcome, right? So when you step back and you realize, well, actually, it's not all or nothing. It's maybe this, or this, or this, and this, or this, and this. Then you can kind of like let go of that feeling that like, oh my God, your decision's going to kill the world. It's probably not. Very few decisions that are going to do that. Even big decisions wouldn't do that. So once you're able to look back and be like, okay, so I'm prone to thinking this way. Am I thinking this way right now? And how is that affecting whether or not I'm capable of really looking at this decision with clear eyes? There's 10 common cognitive distortions, and I won't go over all of them right now, but if you learn of them, like, for example, one way that I describe cognitive distortions is, for example, you're walking down the hallway and you see a friend. So imagine you're in school again, or work, wherever you see people in the hallway, and they don't smile at you. And in your head, you're like, oh my God, they're so mad at me. Oh, I must have done something. Oh, I must have like said something rude, and now they hate me, and now they're never going to like me again. And like, now you're in this like world. You've created a new world where somebody's action meant something. One, they didn't say that to you. They didn't express that to you. And there's many reasons why that person could be upset, right? So you've created this whole world and you're feeling it. The feelings are real. You're validly feeling them, but they're not correct. Let's say that person could have just gotten yelled at by their boss, or that person could be worried about their mother who's sick, or that person could have not even paid attention that you were walking down the hall because they were like in their own little mess in their head about something that happened earlier with somebody else, right? So there's all these like reasons for why this person may have not smiled at you. So when you step back and think, that person maybe that smile had nothing to do with you. Now, do you have a reason to feel bad, or to feel afraid, or to feel scared, or to feel like you messed up? No. So, stepping back, recognizing, am I thinking about the situation in the correct way? If you're thinking about it in the correct way, now you can assess how you're feeling about it. Now you can actually move forward with all of the information, right? So I'm going to make sure that you guys get that link, and please click on it and learn about that, because it'll help you with all sorts of things. The next part is I want you to think about the relationship dynamics. So a lot of our decisions have to do with other people, right? And so there's very few decisions that we take that don't affect anybody else, and that won't affect us in a way that could affect anybody else. And so what is the dynamic of the relationship that you think the situation will affect? Because even situations like, well, if I do this thing that I want to do, people will think this about me. Or it may make me act in this way, and that will affect how people see me. Or recently I was talking to somebody who's struggling because they don't want to put themselves out there with their work because they're afraid that how people will see them. They'll feel embarrassed, or people will judge them, or they'll be bullied, or they'll be affected negatively. Okay? So all of that's valid because those are real possibilities, and it's a real fear. It's a real feeling. So now you have to ask yourself, what are the relationship dynamics in place? Who is it that you're afraid of? Who is it that might be affected? How would they be affected? And in the case that they were affected, what would happen? What would be the next decision to make? You have to think about that. And the reason that's so important is because, again, a lot of the times, cognitive distortions. We're thinking that people think about us way more than they do. Or we're thinking that people will automatically have a negative reaction. Or we're putting a whole lot of weight on another person's reaction that doesn't need to have that much weight. Not everybody's opinion matters in your life. And I know that's not easy. It's totally not easy. I struggle with that, and it's definitely not like I'm going to say, fuck the world. But there is, it is important to kind of put a little weight on how much you want to take this decision. Like, will me not doing this be worth keeping that positive dynamic that I feel is positive right now? Or will me making this decision, could it possibly affect this dynamic in a positive way? So the next part actually goes into both of these, but it's called, I want you to think about the future state of affairs. Make it sound fancy. So, for example, are you thinking about the future only if things go wrong? So, okay, let's say you want to do something great with your life. You want to become an artist, or you want to put yourself out there in that kind of sense, right? And you're choosing, you're too scared because there's so much going on. You're afraid that, how will that affect my current job? How will it affect my education? How will it affect my family? How will it affect my work? How will it affect how people see me? What if I'm not good? What if I can't cut it out, right? What if I'm just not cut out? Sorry, don't know how to say that saying. What if I'm not cut out for it? Okay, you're thinking of all the what ifs that are bad. That makes sense. I mean, you're probably smart for thinking about the real possibilities, what if you suck? Some people do. I mean, okay, but what if you don't? What if you did it and all these great things happened? Now, a lot of us will turn right back around, because that's just how we think. And we'll say, well, even if everything was great, what if it affects it in this way, negative, right? We'll think of all the negative. Okay, that's okay. Move forward. What if? What are the possibilities that are positive, even if everything went wrong? Even if everything went good and those things turned out to be bad? What are the possibilities in that sense, Now, I want you to do the opposite thinking and counter situation. Let's say you don't make the decision. Let's say you say, I can't do this. I can't go out. I can't risk these negative things. What are you risking now? Because you're risking something. You're still risking something. You're risking your passion. You're risking the possibility of a better future. You're risking the possibility of happiness and joy, of truly living out your purpose, right? There's still a lot of negativity that could happen if you don't do it, if you don't try. So how will that then affect your possible relationship dynamics in the future? Will you be feeling resentful towards your spouse for not doing this because you put it on them that they wouldn't be okay with you doing it, without them being the one to say that you can't, right? Now you're feeling resentful 20 years from now because you didn't do what you wanted to do with your life, even though you made that decision. Now you're feeling man, I'm struggling with all these other things when I could have made $1 million, with whatever I was doing. And that's because I was too afraid and the fear of losing it all ended up with me losing it all. So there's tons of negative things that could happen if you don't do it, right? So you got to look at the negative of the indecision as well. So anytime you have a risk, so you're going to make a decision, there's going to be a risk, right? What is not risking, right? What are you going to lose if you don't make that decision? Think about it. It's something that we don't always think about it. I actually, those words and everything that I learned was from a book called Tools. I believe it's by Phil Stutz. Awesome book. I really like that book just because it made it very simple. It made it very like dude, just make this like they just made it in a way that was very simple. It had like comic strips on it because I'm a little kid, you know. But I love the way they framed it because one of the little tools he said was, picture yourself in your deathbed, looking back. How would you feel about this decision, about the situation? Would you have wished to have done it, or would you wish that you hadn't? And that kind of comes down to these situations where you put you're at a what is the word, junction. You're at a point where you either have to take a left or a right. What's going to genuinely happen? What are the possibilities of what could happen on either one? But at the end of the day, when you're on the other side, where are you going to wish you had been? Which turn do you wish you had done? I think that while it's important to be practical, while it's important to be safe and to be smart, you can live a very safe, smart, practical, boring, purposeless, and resentful life because you chose to not take any risks. And most people are going to err on the side of not taking the risk. You know, not everyone does go out there and try to become the best or put themselves out there and become an influence or make a difference, you know, and society's not going to tell you to do it. They're going to tell you the opposite. They're going to say, what's safe and is this worth losing? Is this risk, you know, worth whatever it is that you could lose? So you really got to genuinely weigh it. Is it going to be worth it to not take the risk? So I want you to think about this. One, are you thinking about it correctly? Do you even have the facts? Is this even a risk? Is this even a fear? Are you putting all these ideas in your head that are not even there? You know, I had somebody tell me that, you know, well, that's what society says. And I'm like, well, first and foremost, we're society. Society is just the people that live in the society, right? So what am I saying versus what somebody else is saying? A lot of the times we're told that we're supposed to think in certain ways, that we're supposed to do certain things. It's called shoulds. And that's a cognitive distortion. To be thinking of what should be or how things should be, how people have told us things should be, gets in the way of what is and what could be. So you have to let go of those preconceived notions, those preconceived ideas, and look at what is and isn't. Some ideas are not good. Some risks are not worth it. In all genuineness, some ideas are bad. Sometimes we're not great at what we think we're great at. Sometimes it's not worth it to lose the people that we love. Sometimes situations aren't safe enough for us to go out of our way and, you know, break our boundaries. Like, it's not always a great risk. It's not a good risk to take, but a lot of times it is. So how will you weigh that situation? What are the pros? What are the cons? What are the benefits versus the cost? You have to make sure that you're thinking about it all correctly first, that you understand what the dynamics of these relationships and how things will be affected. And when I say relationships, you could be the relationship of you between yourself, you between your God, you between your family, friends, community, home, pets, kids. I mean, there's a lot of relationships to consider, and that makes sense. And then you have to think about, in reality, what deep down you want, and you will know that when you think about, at the end of your life, what do you wish you had done? And so we gotta just, at the end of the day, most decisions aren't that big of a deal. If it is that big of a deal, take your time, really put the work in to decide it, because it is scary. And so I understand it can be scary. You'll see this post during this week. I just wrote it right now. But courage is not courage if you're not afraid. You know, anybody can take an action if they're not afraid, right? So you're not brave for doing something you're not afraid to do. You're brave if you do it because you're freaking scared and you do it anyways. So what are you scared of? And how are you going to get pushed at and use the courage that you have and be brave? I want you guys to be smart about it, but I also want you to be courageous. So if you're having struggle with this, if you're trying to get through some sort of issue, obviously if you don't want to share it publicly, don't. But send me a message. So either send me a message here on Instagram, or go ahead and go through my website. You can go directly to my chat site through bit.ly/ where's my link? Chat with Rocio with 2 I's. So ChatWithRocio. I'll put that link on there too. But make sure you go on there, and it's actually really helpful because since you're going through your email, it's through the website, but once you get off and I respond to you, if I have to respond to you later, it'll just let you know in your email. So it's a lot easier, and yeah, make sure you do that. Thank you guys so much for watching on here, those of you who got on here and those who watched later. If you have any questions or if you have anything that you want to go over, send me a message or send me comments or share or like or send me hearts, all of it. Thank you guys, and I hope you have a wonderful day. I'll try to get on tomorrow because I really want to talk to you guys about feelings themselves, and specifically when and when not to act on your feelings. So, talk to you guys later. Have a good day.